Good morning, everyone. Craig Stewart-Adams here, and we're going to go ahead and introduce our speaker, Larry Dodd. And let me just tell you a little bit about Larry. In 2011, Larry founded Open Playbook, a consulting and speaking and training organization. Open Playbook helps leaders build the inward-facing financial architecture and management discipline to effectively scale their organizations. Larry has over 35 years of leadership experience serving a wide range of companies, including the San Francisco Giants, Meritage Homes, Signature Homes, Robert Half International, Deloitte, and Arthur Andersen, among others. What links his diverse array of clients is that each has had a critical need to make a change in its business. In addition to being a Big Five CPA and an award-winning CFO, Larry is a Gallup certified strengths coach who focuses on driving organizational change through strengths-based leadership. It's my pleasure to introduce Larry Dodd.
Thank you, Craig.
Everyone,
thank you to the Golden Gate Breakfast Club. You have a fantastic history of over 65 years of helping people, and never has that been a more important example than it is today. I'm honored to be here. In my career, I've typically been hired by companies to bring change, to lead change. It can be a big computer conversion. It could be scaling a company and giving them new processes. It could be working with their leaders to help stabilize the fall or build the leaders. Lots of different things along those lines. The one constant, though, was change. And the one name that we seemed to start with in each case was hired gun. I would be the new guy who would come in and have to implement a change process with the existing teams, and there would be a lot of fear. They would be afraid because too often in change is made over the top of people. And we look at people as cogs in a wheel, or something that we can just put in and take out at will. And that's not the case, and that's not the approach that I had. What I found was many leaders just approached the symptoms of change. They tried to look at the symptom of change, which was a computer system or new processes, and think that was the change, but it's not. Then they tried to look at the tools of change for flow charts and spreadsheets and checklists, and they thought that was the change, but that wasn't the change either, because you see, the change occurs in the hearts and minds of people. That's where the change occurs. And early in my career, I had an 18-month period, which we'll talk about shortly, that was very transformative and changed the way that I manage and I think about leading people and leading change. And it also formed the foundation of Open Playbook. Now, we talked about 3 objectives today. We want to talk about finding talent in other people that others miss. Then we want to talk about, what do we do with that talent? How do we develop a playbook that transforms that talent and drives exceptional results? And then finally, we want to talk about, how do we give our playbook away in a way that helps others who aren't as far along as we are to be more effective and to move the ball forward. And so those are our objectives today. In founding Open Playbook and taking companies and leaders and the teams they lead through this process, I can understand the pain, because quite frankly, this is the process that I followed in my career, particularly in the incidences we'll talk about in a moment. So I've been there. I can look somebody in the eye and explain to them why we have 3 playbooks, what we do with them, and understand exactly how they feel. So this is my story. In 1992, I found myself in a small interior office waiting for Bob. Bob walks in. He's got long hair, a polo shirt, jeans, tennis shoes, and he looks like the happiest guy in the world. Now me, I was sitting there in my pinstripe suit, my white shirt, a red power tie that was awesome, and my wingtips. And so as Bob sits down, I'm thinking to myself, how is Bob going to help me? What can he possibly do to help me with the problem that I have now? What can I learn from Bob? And he was about to show me I could learn an awful lot. You see, I was working in home building at the time, and we had been in a hockey curve or hockey stick curve up. We couldn't build them fast enough for 3 years. I was the assistant controller for KB Homes, and we were innovating. We were putting in new computer systems. We were building people, and there was a path for me for growth, to be the next controller of a big division we were getting ready to open. But as home building often does, the hockey stick flipped. And it went to hockey stick down in terms of diving and declining. So the growth was gone. And the company started asking me and expecting me and needing me to do very traditional accountant-like things, like spreadsheets and flow charts and journal entries, all kinds of tedious things that really, for me, became very, very frustrating. And as they became frustrating, I started to make everybody else around me miserable, including my boss. So in my mind, it got to the point where I thought I was going to lose my job. And I reached out to Bob, who was a career counselor, and I became Bob's assignment. So I'm sitting in the room as Bob comes in, he sits down, and he asked me a short question or two about where my pain point was. But then he immediately started to talk to me about, well, what do you like to do? What are your strengths? What makes you happy? What would you like to do in the coming years? He turned my entire disposition around, but what he was really doing was building trust. Halfway through, he shared with me something that opened my playbook. So our first playbook is opening the playbook that we were given. And Bob opened my playbook. He essentially showed me my Myers-Briggs, and it was 180 degrees opposite from what traditional accountants did. And it was like somebody turned a light on in a dark room. There was nothing wrong with me. I was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, doing the wrong thing with the wrong perspective.
Wow.
What had once been so powerful as we were growing was now a detriment as we were shrinking. And I knew that I had to make a change. As I worked with Bob over the coming weeks, I started to develop a new approach. And that approach was based on change, because you see, in accounting, you don't need change people very often, but when you need them now, and you typically will pay very well for those people to come on board. And so as we started to pull things together, I had a whole new game plan. And I also had a new game plan for how I was going to approach working with other people. Because thinking about what Bob did, he sat down with me and he got to know me and built trust first to see what he was working with. But what he was really trying to see is, what playbook did I start with? What was my inherent level of skills, talents? What did I start with? And then he helped me develop that into a new game plan. And that's the very first playbook in the open playbook methodology. We have to look inward to see what our playbook is. And when I'm coming in to make change in an organization, I help other people to look inward as well. And so we overcome those initial fears of being the hired gun by really looking to build and develop people and help them to make the change as well. So the first step is to open our playbook and help others to open their playbooks. And we find talents that nobody else can. So now I had a new game plan and it was time to go to work. A few months go by, and on December 23rd of 92, I was returning a phone call from John Yee. John Yee was the controller of the the CFO, of the San Francisco Giants. And John got on the phone and we were talking, and he said, "Larry, I know we haven't talked for a while. We thought we were going to Florida, but now we're not. And I looked at your resume again, and I'd really like to have lunch with you." And I said, "Well, great, John. When would you like to do that?" He said, "How about today?" And I said, "Today is great. Today is perfect." And I drove over to Candlestick Park. And as I'm crossing the bridge, I'm thinking about this new playbook I have and where the Giants might be. And so because I'm a change person, I'm good at driving change and building teams, I started to see a synergy between what the McGowan Group wanted to do with the Giants from a business point of view. Ended up having a wonderful lunch with John. And on the way back to Candlestick Park, I shared with John, I said, "John, we've talked a few months ago, and I have a couple positions I'm looking at. And in fact, the one that probably will have an offer this week." I said, "I'm not trying to pressure you, but I just want you to know where I'm at." We go back to Candlestick Park and go to John's office. John talks a little bit of small talk. He says, "Can you wait a minute?" And so he leaves me in the interview. I just met him. And I'm sitting in a chair in his office for what seemed like a long time. And John walks back in and says, Larry, I'd like you to meet somebody. And so I get up and I walk with him to Larry Bear's office. Now, Larry Bear is a lifelong Giant if there ever was one. So we were talking about baseball, and Larry said to me, I understand you're a big Giants fan. And I was. And I said, oh, yeah, I followed them all my life. And he says, how about that Ron Hunt? Now, does anybody here know who Ron Hunt was? You have to be a real Giant fan to know who Ron Hunt was. And I knew. And I knew why Ron Hunt was an important figure for the San Francisco Giants. And so I said, Larry, how often did he get hit by a pitch? Because he was a human magnet. He got hit all the time. And Larry talked with me a little bit more, and then John looked at me and said, Larry, would you go back to my office? And I did. I walked back, and as I'm going down the hall, all the ball players' pictures are on the side of the hallway, looking down at me. These are my heroes, Will Clark and Matt Williams at the time. And I go into John's office, I sit down in the chair, and now I'm kind of getting the goosebumps thinking something could be happening here. And the chair kind of rose up to swallow me, and I felt like I was sinking down in this huge chair. And after what seemed like an awful long time, John walks back in very matter-of-factly. He sits at his desk, he slaps his hands, he puts his hands on his desk, and he says, Larry, some things happen only once in life. This is one of them. We want you to be the next controller for the San Francisco Giants. Now, I'm probably 20 years removed from that conversation. I didn't remember anything that he said after that conversation in the moment, and I don't remember it now. But what I do remember is what I said. And what I said was, yes, absolutely, I would love to do that. It was a huge break in my career. But probably more important than that is to think about the path that took us to the second playbook. Had I not developed my second playbook, which is based on my talents and my inherent differences and competitive advantages, I never would have been ready for Providence to step in that moment. And I ended up getting that job on one interview, on one afternoon, in 4 hours. The biggest job for a sports fan in San Francisco and a career maker for me. So what did I learn about managing teams? In managing teams and managing change and managing people through change, if I've helped them open their playbooks so that they start to develop some confidence and see what talents they really bring into the arena, and then coach them to use a playbook that develops with the change in the organization, we start to see Providence step in just like it did for me. And that Providence escalates things. It makes them go faster. It makes the change happen much more quickly, but really much more efficiently. And we see leaders step up from places we would never expect them. So now I was in my swim lane. Now I knew what I was right where I was supposed to be, and I jumped in with both feet. Later that year, beginning of next year in February 1994, I was sitting outside USF's MBA in sports management. I was asked to give a talk, hour-and-a-half talk about the business of baseball. And I had the perfect talk. I knew exactly what I wanted to do, start to finish. And so as I'm sitting there, I started to think about, do I really want to have that opening story? Do I really want to have that opening story, or do I need to change it? And this is right before the talk. And the opening story was a story about getting the Giants job in one interview. And my fear was that people would look at me and they would say, I got lucky. They would look at me and they would say, I must have known somebody. They would look at me and they would say, you're not worthy. On top of it, the audience at USF was filled with lawyers and advanced degrees and vice presidents and a lot of USF graduates. Me, I went to Sonoma State. So I found myself talking myself down, and Providence stepped in yet one more time. Right before I was to walk in and give the talk, I asked myself the question, why are you doing this? Why are you here? Are you here because of your ego and you want to present an image of something different? Or do you really want to offer people something important, something that is real, something that is authentic, something that is the thinnest slice of who I was and the most vulnerable. Well, that answered the question for me. And I went in and I gave the talk. We had a wonderful talk. And after the talk, a young man walks up to me right through the center of the classroom, and he shakes my hand and he says, "Larry, my name's Kevin, because I really enjoyed your talk. You know, we sit here week after week after week and have sports executives come in and tell us, you have to know somebody. You have to get lucky. You have to be worthy. You have to be from the right school. And you shared your story with us, and it's a very different story. It's a very different story, and it inspired me. And you know, we have an intern posting from the Giants here at USF, and I just figured I didn't have a chance. Why try? Why even put my name in it? But now, after hearing you speak, I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to send my resume in, and we'll see what happens. And I walked out, you know, I felt really good because it had tested me to reach into my heart a little bit. And so I left, I went back to Candlestick, and we rolled into the season. And if I found myself in a homestand in July, and what people don't see about baseball is in the front office, when you're in a homestand, you're on. Everybody's on. It's a buzz of activity. And this was no exception. So John Ellenthorpe, who was our director of community development, came in one afternoon, and he had a young man trailing behind him and said, "Larry, hey, do you have just a minute?" And I really didn't have a minute. I had a deadline I was driving to. I was focused on it. I wanted to get it done. And so I told him that. And he looked me right in the eye and he goes, "Larry, I need 10 minutes of your time." And now John never did that. I knew John very well. And so I said, "Sure, John." We walked into my office and sit down, and the young man sits down and he looks at me and he's got this smile on his face, right? And he says, "You don't remember me, do you?" And I looked at him, I said, "You look familiar." And he goes, "My name is Kevin, and I was at your talk at USF, and your story, your initial story, the story you started with about how you got your job, inspired me to apply for this one, and guess what? I got the job." And I just wanted to tell you that if you hadn't have shared that story with me, I wouldn't be here today. That's a powerful moment. They walked out and time stood still. In the middle of a homestand, everything stopped. And I sat there for 15 minutes thinking about how much power, how much opportunity that we have as a leader to truly impact people in a way that's meaningful, often with our story, all of it. So what's the point? The point is, when we open our playbook, which is the third playbook, and we share our stories with the people we're building, all of it, we find people who will run through walls for us. In fact, it's an obligation. So I took that forward, and as we started to make change in organizations, I started looking at people differently, and I started building people differently. But more importantly, I started sharing more of myself with key people I was building, not just my victories, not just my wins, not just everything that I wanted to be proud of. I shared the blemishes, and I shared the setbacks, and I shared the challenges. And what happened is people responded. And again, Providence steps in, and people start to make things happen that you would never expect, and often from who you don't think it would be. So we want to open our playbook. We want to share all of it. And we're going to find that people will run through walls for us. So let's pull this all together. This was a game-changing experience for me because it became the way that I managed from then on. And in pulling it together, we want to think about change is not about the symptoms of change. People are not cogs in a machine, but change happens in the hearts and minds of people. That's where change happens. And as leaders, we have to think about how to touch that in a personal way, but we have to touch our hearts in a personal way first. So it's really simple. You know, Wayne Dyer had a wonderful quote I heard a few years ago. He said, "When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change." As a corporate change maker who people thought was a hired gun, that is a powerful, powerful tool. In an open playbook, I help leaders think, change the way they think about change. I challenge them and I show them how to use the 3 playbooks. The first playbook that you open is, who are you? Who are you really? What are your strengths and what do we have to build upon? And when I do that, we find talents that other people don't find. The second is, once we know those talents, we want to develop into strengths that make important contributions to the organization. In fact, important contributions to the person. So that's how we develop our playbook. And the third is, we want to give our playbook away, all of our playbook. When we do that, we will build teams of people that will run through walls for us. When you apply your 3 playbooks and you get good at it and practice it, you will find that your teams will drive successful change every time. Thank you.
Good.
Awesome. Great job, Larry.
Thank
Well,
you.
How long were you with the Giants, by the way?
I was with the Giants for 5 years when McGowan bought the team. I was the first controller, and it was everything you might think it would be. It was an incredibly powerful experience and totally changed my career, and it changed my life. You know, I was just a regular guy.
What do you miss most about professional baseball?
What do I miss most about professional baseball? I think it's the thrill of game day and the buzz of activity and the quality of the people. Probably the quality of the people most of all. It's just a can-do environment, and you bring joy to people. I used to go sit in the upper deck of the stadium and watch families at lunch. I mean, how powerful is that, right?
Wow. I mean, I think you're in good company because there's a lot of baseball fans here on the Golden Gate Breakfast Club call.
Yeah.
What other questions do we have? If you have a question, go ahead and unmute yourself and just ask Larry.
If I may, Mr. President, well, one, may I say congratulations. You made NSANC members proud.
Thank you, Patricia.
And my question of you is, how long did it take from you to consider yourself from just a regular guy to someone who now helps other leaders?
That's a really great question, because I still think of myself as a regular guy, and I think that's what allows me to touch leaders in a very real way. So in looking at my playbook and what I got and what I'm using, I think that it was there all along. It was just the evolution. It evolves today, Patricia. So I can't think of a specific moment other than when people connect, and Barry Bonds puts his shoes on one shoe at a time, just like the rest of us, right?
Well, let me put it this way. When did you suddenly realize you have a superpower that others see in you? Even though for you, you might not see it as a superpower, it is.
Okay, great. I actually think the one interview with the Giants, there were so many reasons that could have went differently. And there were so many different discussions that I could have had on the way over that would have no way prepared me to meet Providence. And that was a defining moment. It was a defining moment because he could have chosen between thousands of people in the Bay Area at that time. And so by putting forth what was authentically me and what I had to offer, knowing it for the very first time in the biggest arena in my world, I want to play center field for the Giants. That would be it for sure. Very much a defining moment.
Hi, Larry. Sidney Mo Bell. I'm just wondering, in 1992, I threw out, I was a guest, I threw out the first baseball at Candlestick Park when the Giants played the Dodgers.
Oh,
I don't know, were
good.
you there at that time? Larry Bear is in my book showing me throwing out the first baseball, which was the gold baseball that I designed.
So the first season I was there in season was 93.
93, I was, yeah.
So in 93, I made a lot of games and I was probably there. It's a very interesting experience, and when you're working in the business, because you never lose your business mind. And so foul ball goes into the stands and you say, wow, did the usher get over and help that person? And all kinds of things. But a gold baseball?
That's right. I gave one to the owner of the Giants. Larry Bear has one.
Yeah.
I gave one to Frank Jordan. He was mayor at the time.
Yep.
And it was on television many, many times, especially when the Giants won the World Series. They showed it on television. And
Wow. That is a true.
If you get a hold of my last book, which is from a orphanage to the Smithsonian, you'll see like 2 pages of that baseball, and I'll be happy to autograph the book for you. Go on to Amazon, and just put Sidney Mobile book, the name of the book, From an Orphanage to the Smithsonian. I'll be happy to autograph it. I'm going to put you on Twitter today as guest.
Okay, I'm honored. I will take you up on that for sure. I think your story, just by the title of what you offer, Sidney, is a message that we all need to hear. And I like to think on a smaller level that I embody the same message. You know, at the end of the day, it's up to us, right? And why not? Why not us? Or why not somebody you're developing, right? And what a powerful title. I will order the book for sure, and I will definitely take you up on the autograph. I promise.
Thank you. It's a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you.
Larry, can I ask you a quick question? And
Of course.
I apologize, but I wasn't going to ask, but I thought, well, it can't hurt to hear it twice, so maybe people need to hear it. You said in the beginning, when this young man, long hair, walked into the office, and I will be honest with you, my phone rang. And it's like, it seemed like whatever he said to you was the linchpin for everything that followed. And I missed, it was something about, he said, you're not right for something. And
well, yeah,
so just repeat that one incident?
Absolutely. So I phrased it differently, right? So I'm gonna say it in a different way I knew what I wasn't right for. I knew it wasn't working, and I thought I was going to get fired every single day. What he showed me was that you are right for this. You can offer this, and it's different, and this is why. And so rather than me doubting myself, which I was, second guessing myself, which I was, I had all kinds of visions of what I was going to do with my career. But he showed me, this is the why. This is the why. When you were with KB and they were growing, you were innovating. You love that stuff. But when you come back to an accountant, when you're doing accountant work, you're just not wired that way. You picked a bad career. Or if we model it, bad career for me, or if we change it to be a change guy in that space, it's a narrower swim lane. You have to move more often, but you can make a nice career. And so we found a way to package it that way, not because we wanted to create a package, but because it presented itself. Providence stepped in. So he showed me what it could be, because that was the linchpin there.
So he saw you as a person who loved innovation. Is that what he?
Yeah, that was one component. So he sat down and we went through, and I could tell him all the things that were wrong and everything I hated and why I was frustrated, but we didn't spend much time there. We talked about all the things that could be right, you know. So he explained in my Myers-Briggs profile that it was completely opposite from what most accountants are, most successful accountants, and that it wasn't good or bad. It just was, right? And so then he laid down a challenge and he said, how are you going to use it? You have this new knowledge. What are you going to do with it? And so we started to develop a new playbook.
Larry, when you're
question.
Oh, go ahead.
were you involved back when the McGowan Group decided to bring in Barry Bonds because they offered him the biggest contract at the time? And as the controller, financial person, were you involved in that?
Well, so it's interesting because if Bonds was, I was at a Warriors game. It's one of those things I can tell you exactly where I was at, who I was with, what I was doing. And I wasn't with the Giants yet when he was signed because he was signed in late '92. And
Okay.
the acquisition for the team occurred in January of '93. So
All right.
that said, we had one cardinal rule with the Giants, and I would bet you that every sports team has it, and that is that the last thing we ever wanted a player to think about on the field, in my world, which I was responsible, was this paycheck. And so at the end of the day, we made sure that was right. And I will tell you, the first few payrolls at the Giants, I reviewed them, and I reviewed them close. And after a while, you start to just know what you're looking for, and your perspective changes. But Bonds, when you really look at some of the things that Peter McGowan and Larry Bear put together to keep that team here, I think we tend to, in the midst of time, maybe not appreciate Peter and Larry's efforts as much as we could. It was really a bold move. So I was involved with Bonds, but after the contract was executed.
Okay.
Larry, since you had put something in chat, why don't you tell us what that is? So,
Yes.
Anyone, please
So
do.
I put together, thanks, Greg. I put together a program summary from today's talk, and it's linked to my website, which will just outline the things we talked about, how Open Playbook works, and it just is a nice reminder.
I have a question for you. When you're coaching people, you mentioned the Myers-Briggs profile earlier. Is that
Right.
something that you use, or do you have something similar to that to try and assess individual strengths and weaknesses?
Yeah, I use Gallup's Clifton Strengths, and I've used it since 2004 when I became CFO for Meritage, and it was a natural progression of a lot of the things we've already talked about. But what that's based upon is a lot of work done by a guy named Jim Clifton, or Don Clifton, back in 50 years ago, and he was a PhD at Nebraska. He looked at everything you saw, and it was all negative about people. And so he decided, surely if we're going to build teams and people, we need to think about what's positive, what's good about people. And he put together a methodology, became part of the Gallup family. It is something that I am very solidly behind because it looks to the strengths of people and how do we build those people. And it has powerful results. It did for me. So that is my tool and methodology that underlies what we do at Open Playbook. And I'm a big believer in that.
Thank you. Anyone else have a question for Larry?
I do. This is Gloria. Larry, your story is very inspirational. I can relate on kind of a smaller level. I remember when I was really young, much younger, I was an accountant. And I remember I used to sit on the edge of my bed and go, why am I going into it? I absolutely hate doing this. It's not me. And so it just took one person to kind of give you that encouragement to move forward. And I took a leap, and I've been in sales ever since.
Yeah.
But I would not have taken that leap to move forward. But someone said, you can do it. And so that really resonated with me.
Yeah.
I wanted to open our introduction to kind of just reinforce that we're often in a position that we really shouldn't be because our talents are very different, but we do things because we have to make a living somehow, right?
Yeah.
In other words, I'm curious. There are a lot of people that motivate people that are inspirational. So why you, when you connect with these top leaders in organizations, why do they choose you? I'd be very curious to see what that take is. So.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot there. There's a lot there that is powerful that you presented. Can I come back and answer that last question in a moment? But I want to draw upon one.
Yes.
If there's one thing that I would hope we could all walk away from, I've had a chance to sit through a couple meetings with this group, and what a powerful group is, how much of a difference we can make in somebody else's life by sharing our story. And you have to find the right person at the right time, but our stories can be very powerful for people who aren't as far along the path. And very often, in life, it was my case, the most vulnerable part, the part that I wrestle with, is the one that can really help people. And then the second question was, why would leaders select me?
Yes.
I think that over the years, I've been able to build a track record, not only of what I do, but how I do it. I cultivate each relationship. My list of references that have been game changers in my career is 5 or 6 people. And I went back a year ago as part of the Speakers Academy, and I asked them, it was one of our challenges. So tell me, tell me about your experience working with me. And I listen actively, but having been a CFO that's driven change in a number of places and the controller on the Giants, and being able to look people in the eye and say, I understand that. I know what it means to be up at 3 a.m. wondering, am I doing the right thing? Is this really the right chance for this person? How far can I go? With all those questions that we struggle with, I've done. And I can look them in the eye, and I hope it's that candor, really. And the second part is getting into the trenches with them, and where the rubber meets the road, and really dealing with people, and really meeting people in a way that they can see, this is somebody who cares about my organization, they care about me. They'll deliver a message, help drive it home, and it won't be Pollyannish. It'll be fair and honest. It'll be based on science with Clifton, on experience with his experience, and on compassion and focus. And so having done those things, I think that helps me to sit in front of a leader and say, you know, I've been there. And quite honestly, if we have that conversation and they say it's not a fit, then some of the best deals you make are the ones you walk away from, right?
Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Any other questions?
Well, this is more of my personal interest. What brought you or attracted you, or who recruited you for NSANC?
Now that is a question, Patricia. When I was with the Giants, I was also an instructor for Dale Carnegie. And so that was my first introduction. And so I had some very good training and some good practice. And I started like everybody else just at the beginning, and it presented itself. And so back in 93, 4, 5, 6, and up through 2000, I would come to NSA meetings and I would wonder, how can I do this? How can I do this? And I could never match everything up, which only tells me that the timing wasn't right. The timing wasn't right. And so I kept coming back, and I kept coming back, and I kept coming back. And the people at NSA, I will say, have to be the most supporting, encouraging, fantastic people I've met. And it's an honor to be associated with that organization. And so it's been a journey and a long one, and it continues. And I'm very honored to be associated with NSA Northern Cal. And I'm very thankful for everybody and for the contributions that you've made, Patricia. It's an amazing group. I'm honored to be part of that.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Larry, I got a couple quick questions for you. Okay.
Yes.
Just 1, 2, 3. Don't have to spend a lot of time on it. But okay, it's in your free time. Okay. It's like, if you have one song, what's your favorite song?
What's my favorite song? Born to Be Wild.
Okay. That tells us a little bit about you. And okay. And what about your favorite movie?
Rocky.
Okay.
Rocky 2, actually.
Okay.
Win,
Which
Rocky,
one?
win.
Yeah. Okay. And then the third question I have for you is, I mean, you're a man of many talents. You know, you're kind of a Renaissance man with all this background. But is there what is it? Tell us something that you would like to accomplish in your life that you haven't been able to at this point.
For me, it always comes back to people. You know, I've had a few people that I've been able to mentor that have done well in their career. And I don't know, it's time to give back. It always has been time to give back. No matter where we're at in that path, Craig, somebody's looking to us and wondering, how did they get there? And so we get so wrapped up in that shiny rock we're chasing that we forget how much we can give back. That's one of the things with NSA I fell in love with. It's like, you know, here's all these people are hugely successful, and at the same time, they have time to talk to me. And so I've been blessed. I have no regrets. And I don't know, I suppose there's a few things out there, but I think it's the next person that says, hey, you know, you spent some time with me and it really made a difference.
Have you had you ever hear back from Kevin? You mentioned him earlier. You
know, I haven't, but it was in practicing for this talk, the emotional impact on me. This is the first time I got through it without tearing up. So I really think about that experience and how it was transformative for me, because it changed the whole vision from taking to giving. And it was transformative to him, because he just followed the path that I had done a year before, right? So where he's gone, I don't know. Maybe we'll link up. Maybe we'll find each other. But he had a good experience, and it was because I took a chance and because he took a chance. Really, that's really what did it.
You have to take the chance.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, at the end of the day, when I think about going in and making change with organizations, I don't want to be corny with you guys, but this is what I think about. You know, when they see me as the hired gun, it's fear. It's a fear-based reaction, right? So you think about what great teams do is that they transform the energy of that fear and they transform it into love. People are working together because, not the romantic love, I'm talking about people that are working together because they've had a shared experience that was transformative and bonded them as a team. And if I can get teams that are mutually accountable because they love each other, then I can exit with a good conscience because they don't need me anymore.
Wow. That what a great note to end this on. Larry, again, thank you so much for joining us today. So give a big applause to Mr. Dodd. Why don't we go ahead and, you know, we're going to need to close the meeting down here shortly. Larry, if you want to stick around and answer a few more questions,
Sure.
You're welcome to do that. And we'll keep the room open for a few minutes. And we have people that need to head off to other obligations at 9. So again, thanks, Larry. What a fantastic presentation. And thank you for sharing it today.
Thank you. It was an honor to be here.
All right.
Thank you, Larry. It's very inspiring.
Thank you.
I think what I'm going to go ahead and do is, at this point, I'm not sure how to turn off the video, so we'll just go ahead and excuse ourselves. And Larry, I hope to see you again. And thanks again for your comments on the National Speakers Association, because I've sat in on a number of their presentations and I've gotten to know a lot of their speakers. And you're right, you know, it's like these are givers. You know, they're people that really care about their craft and they're keen on just sharing what they know with anybody new. I've had the same experience, and I'm not even an active member in the NSA, but when I've been involved with them for any reason, I just always feel welcome, and it's just a top-notch group of people. So, you know, maybe at some point, Patricia will probably be working on me.
Well, it's one of the best things I've ever done, and I don't say that lightly.
Wow. All right. Well, we're gonna close this down.
Okay.
Nice seeing everybody. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.